Anyway, but God is good, and here we are, right? Shall we pray?
Yeah.
In whatever condition we're in, oh God, you speak to us, and we pray that your Spirit would be in us sufficiently enough so that we might grow in Christ. And we pray it in his name. Amen. Okay. Thanks for coming. And those of you who are home, we've got 10, 12 people that are watching. Did you know that?
That are what?
Watching right now.
Oh.
So Karen, try to...
Bring to the camera, everyone.
They're counting on us to... Okay, let's take a look at Mark 15. And we've got one more gathering next week, right? As far as Tuesday. I think it's going to work out good as far as...
15? Mark 15?
Yeah, we're going to look at Mark 15, 1 through 21. That's where I'm at least. And we are going to have just... the question I want to ask you while we're looking at this is who is responsible for the death of Jesus?
The scribes and Pharisees.
Okay.
God.
God? Well, that's a provocative statement.
What was his plan?
It was God's plan.
Judas helped too.
Judas? We are. I want to hear more from you. A minute?
Do we read it?
No, right now.
Right now? I just feel like these things are happening because that's what he wanted for us. He sent Jesus to be that. So he just had to put it in people's minds, or he already knew how they would think and respond. And
That's right.
so
Is this whole book about a story of salvation? I mean, how do you regard the whole book? What's the book about, in your estimation?
to me, it's God's love for us and trying to help us. Yeah.
God's love for us and trying to help us. Yeah, what's the theme? If somebody were to ask you on the street, what's the Bible about? What's it about?
Sin and redemption.
Sin and redemption? Okay, all right. The Catholics have spoken. No, Reformed Church people would say that. I'm just teasing. Anybody else? What's the book about?
Human nature and God's nature and trying to connect the two.
Mm-hmm. Human nature and God's nature? I'm sorry, Helen, we're all full. What's the Bible? Hey, Helen, what's the Bible about?
I've been to the dentist.
You sleep with a dentist, Helen.
It's not the one I went to this morning.
Yeah.
So what is this? What is this? Is there any one overarching theme? I mean, can you say that about a novel? Can you say it about a movie? What is, if somebody says, did you see the latest movie? What's it about? Can you say it? It's about this.
How to find God, follow him,
Mm-hmm.
and
I'm not saying there's one answer, but
choosing right from wrong.
right from wrong?
And in the end, you know, if you choose to do the wrong thing throughout your life, then you never, I can't think. If you never correct your sin and repent, then you will go to one place, and if you do repent and you improve yourself, you'll go to up above the kingdom.
Western
And
Michigan.
That sounds very simplistic,
That's
but
right.
I don't have enough sleep, so.
Well, you're doing pretty well, Karen, for being exhausted. What is this book about? Can you say it in one sentence?
Love. It's about love.
It's about love.
Loving yourself, loving God first, then others, and then yourself. That's what it's about.
Okay, all right, yeah, okay. That's a pretty short answer. Anybody else want to give it a shot? What's this about?
Fulfillment of the promise
What's the promise?
that we would be freed from the guilt of our sin and the total realization that we could not make amends. But God promised that he would through all the ages.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that the book speaks to the fact that if God said it, you can believe it because it does happen.
Okay.
So I feel like it is a fulfillment of the prophecy and the culmination of faith, because faith is such a hard thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, we live in a secular, I'm saying that I'm asking for this for a reason, and the reason is we live in a secular society on the East Coast of the United States. And if you go over to Europe, it's even more so. And they will not be able to tell you what this is about. 90% of the population on the East Coast of the United States, 95%, cannot answer the question, what is that book about?
On the East Coast?
On the East Coast of the United States, yeah.
From Maine to Florida?
Yep.
Yep.
Or not Florida, to the Mason-Dixon line,
Oh, okay.
I would say.
Northeast.
Northeast United States
And then-
is a secular culture. And they will not, people do not understand what this book is. They cannot answer the question, what is the Bible about? They cannot answer it. So it's up to you to answer it.
So I know you didn't like the song that we sang on Sunday.
Well, I couldn't read it.
Yeah, that's, you know, God so loved the world.
Right.
Salvation, I think.
It's about salvation.
But that whole song, you
Yeah.
know, is all about that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's Jesus, right? It's John 3:16 is what it is, right? Yeah, I knew the words, I just couldn't read the music.
Yeah, it was just hard because.
Yeah, and it's a little,
You and I were
these,
talking about it. It's a vocal solo to me.
Yeah.
is it?
That's not really a good
It's
church
not, it's
hymn.
not a,
There aren't parts even written on the 4 parts
Yeah.
and that like your.
You are gonna love your next minister. Please get somebody that can read music.
And people who haven't probably sung in choirs wouldn't be familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You know,
Well, it's beautiful, it's beautiful. I
It
just
is, I love it. We've done it a lot.
Have you?
Usually it's not that hymn we have a choir
Yeah.
version of it.
I knew a
It's
kind of
like-
jazzy version of it from
Sort of
Black Church,
A
but,
church staple.
Yeah.
okay, so, well, here's Tom Feet's answer, and it's similar to, gosh, I need Dramamine. Similar to Helen's. It's a love story. That's Tom Feet. It's a love story. It's about 2 characters, the human family, and about God, who are trying to get back together. And of course, you can say a lot after that, but if somebody just says that, asks you in Moronas, and I would also suggest that most persons that don't go to church or haven't studied the Bible, they will say the exact opposite. It's a book of hate, because that's how it's being used, in a hateful manner.
The rules.
Rules. These are the people that don't count. These are the people you can hate. These are the people that you keep out of your life. These are the people, right? It's all that kind of stuff. That's how it's being used as a hammer. It's being weaponized, as they say. So, yeah, you got to come to grips with that. Are there rules in the Bible? Of course, we got 10 of them hanging from the wall right here. But is that what it's about? Is this about rules? If that's the case, I'm out. I got enough rules. I had good parents. They told me all sorts of rules. How about your parents? Lots of rules. I got plenty of rules. Don't need that. That does not compel me. But a love story? Yeah, I want to hear more. Okay? All right. So who is responsible for the death of Jesus? Pat, you get the prize for saying us. We did. You want to say more? No. Now, what if I did that from up here? I don't want to say any more. Probably people clap, maybe, right? Start clapping. Yeah. It's the religious world. Would you go with that? The religious leaders are responsible? Yes? No? No? I need a reaction.
Because they were strictly adhering to legalism rules, very tight knit.
Yeah, and Jesus was blasphemous by claiming, when he starts saying, I am, that's not good, I am is reserved only for Yahweh. No one says I am. I mean, that's fighting language. So the religious leaders are out to kill him. What about the political leaders? Pilate, Herod,
Yeah, because they're worried about competition.
yeah,
Power.
yeah. We're going to get to all this in a minute, right? We've done some of this with the religious leaders. What about the crowd? Release Barabbas.
They're very fickle.
Yeah, and dangerous, right? Have you heard of, January 6th? Have you heard of that one? You see a crowd that's out of control. I think one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of this country. That's how I see it. You may disagree. I thought it was absolutely reprehensible and dangerous. And then what about the reader? This is one of the things that I've been repeating probably for 40 years, is that the Bible is looking over its shoulder, we're reading it, and they're going, what about you? Where are you in this? And the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, they have that, it has that rhythm to it. What about you? It's dialogic. The scriptures want to be in dialogue with the reader or the hearer. You can't read. Okay, is that clear? What about you? What about you? Where would you be in all this, in this mix? What about the disciples? Do they bear responsibility? Mm-hmm. Are they responsible for the death of Jesus in some way?
Well,
I'm just asking the question. You can answer.
Judas and Peter was wishy-washy about it.
Is wishy-washy what you want to see in a week like this? During a week like this? Have you seen Zelensky in the last 48 hours? How he's aged in 20 days? He's aged 20 years in 20 days.
I saw him this morning.
I saw-
That's exactly what I thought to myself.
Yeah,
He's gotten so old looking.
yeah.
All those.
He's
The
being
stress.
torn to bits. It's stress.
When you think about leaders of countries and what they look like when they come in and go out,
Yeah.
it's that way with all of our presidents,
Uh-huh. Right.
really.
Yeah.
Look at Obama now, he's somewhere today, he looks
I know.
40 years older.
Yeah,
than
he does.
is.
Yeah.
And then to add the stress of what Zelensky's got now,
Right.
I mean, it's almost unbelievable.
The trauma, walking
They
through that.
already
I
have-
can't remember the name of that town, but walking through that town.
Bucha.
Bucha? Yeah, thanks for that.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, these are my people. He's the leader of Ukraine. He's gonna, like FDR, what was he, 63? He was my age when he died. I think he was 63. I want to say 63. You talk about giving your life for your country. You can do it from the Oval Office as well.
If you do it right.
If you do it right.
Give it.
And this is a thing about the scriptures, I would say, and the Gospels in particular, is we are given this image, this typical image of power and authority, and the religious leaders have it, the political leaders, the Romans have it, and here's Jesus. I don't know how you consider him. If he's in some ways the king, he's the Messiah. Do you go with that? Yeah. Is that who he is to you? And how he conducts himself. We're going to see staying silent. Is that power in your mind? It's such a weird view of power.
He seems very humble, and he's been through so much stress up until that point.
Yeah.
And he's still in a stressful situation, but he still maintains that quietness and humbleness.
Yeah, yeah. And is in your opinion, is he somehow connected with God?
He doesn't seem like he is.
Say more, Karen. How's that?
Doesn't he say in the Garden of Gethsemane, something to the effect, why are you allowing this to happen? I forget the exact.
Take this cup away from me. On the cross, he'll say, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? That's on the cross, yeah. Yeah. I mean, doesn't this mess with your, well, I'll speak for myself. It messes with my idea of authority and power. It's a repudiation. When I read this, and all four Gospels are similar this way. They're telling their story, but, when you're reading it, as an American especially, our idea of authority and power, well, it's our military, isn't it? And our money, our power. Do we have any other locus of power in the country? I'm kind of hoping you say we should. Do we have any moral authority? Do we have any authority of grace and mercy? Or justice? I think the Gospels are saying over and over, this person who's been resurrected, none of this makes any difference if he's not resurrected, by the way. He's just a fool. Don't you think? He's just a fool, I think, without the resurrection. But if he's resurrected, then what he taught and how he lived means to me that God has put his stamp of approval on that. Am I being clear about that? Does that make sense? See, Christians, you'll hear Christians say this all the time, especially in Western Michigan, because they love violence, is that in the second coming, then Jesus is going to come and he's going to straighten things out. He's going to come with a sword in his hand. They love that kind of stuff because that resounds in their worldview. That power has to do with the power of violence. And this is one reason why I don't live in Western Michigan, by the way. I can't stand that point of view. I mean, is what we see Jesus doing and saying and then being resurrected, can we look back and say, that's the real thing? He's the real thing, that's the right teaching, that's the way we do it, and if he's connected to God, that's how God does it too. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense here.
I think what Karen said about, was he all that connected to God? I think that in the garden, that struggle that we see, this really gets me. The willingness to become the Lamb and to take on sin. And I believe that what he's going through now, before Pilate, his whole crucifixion, he is taking on sin. And it's in his face at every turn. Yet, he remains the unblemished Lamb. That's why he's...
Okay, and that's a great point. Say more if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of the whole sacrifice symbolism. It had to be pure. It had to be unblemished. So he doesn't show his power. His think the most awful thing was when God could not look on him because he was really sin. To me, I can't even wrap my head
Yeah.
around what that must be like.
Yeah, and that's, you sound like St. Paul right now, because you're looking back to say, what does this mean? What happened? Because I think a lot of people also will say, well, this is just a terrible death that this individual went through. He went through crucifixion, which can't get any worse, I don't think. After he's flogged and spit on, we'll get to that in a minute. But it's the worst kind of death you can go through, or one of them, certainly. And I think without St. Paul, we would think, okay, this person's going to be crucified, it's terrible. But in Christian theology, we say, no, he wasn't just killed, but the sin, the brokenness, the hatred, the darkness of humanity as a whole is put on him. Just like during Passover, you take a perfect lamb, you slaughter that lamb, not for the sins of the lamb hasn't sinned. It's for everybody else. It's put on, and that's how the sacrifice was done in Jerusalem as well, right? Do you have that? That's the theology. That's the so what part of the story. So what? Who cares? Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. A lot of people were crucified in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. Who cares? I mean, who cares? What's the big deal? That's what makes it a big deal, and that's why St. Paul is so important. St. Paul will put that in perspective. And in the Old Testament too, there'll be some of it, but St. Paul is the one that really clicks. This is the so what. Okay, does that make sense? Is this useful? I can't read you today. Is it useful?
I've always had a question about the sacrificial lamb. And the Jewish people, as you say, did this ritually, and they did not believe, or they do not believe, that Jesus, the resurrection, that he was the Son of God and the prophet and the Son of God that they have been waiting for and are still waiting for, I guess. Why did they stop the ritual of slaughtering?
That is a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer.
When you talk about Jesus' sacrifice, why did they stop their sacrifice after?
Great question. I don't have the answer to that.
Resurrection.
And I don't know when they stopped.
I guess that's why I've never.
You want me to throw out I can throw out a guess.
Okay.
In 70 AD, the temple in Jerusalem was burned to the ground. It was torn to the ground. And my guess is after that, because there's no temple anymore, that ritual sacrifice.
It had to be done in that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
That's my guess.
Thank you.
Okay, it's just a guess though. Don't take me seriously. Okay. All right, so why don't we read this then, huh? That's a long introduction, but sometimes that's important. We've got 15, 1 through 5. Somebody want to give that a shot, nice and loud?
Very early in the morning, the chief priests with the elders, the teachers of the law, and the whole Sanhedrin reached a decision. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. "Are you the king of the Jews?" asked Pilate. "Yes, it is as you say," Jesus replied. The chief priests accused him of many things. So again, Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer? See how many things they are accusing you of." But Jesus still made no reply, and Pilate was amazed.
So what are the Jews accusing him of? They're coming up with charges, right?
Coming up with what?
Charges against him, yeah.
Well, we read last week the false testimony, that he was saying he'll raise the church again or whatever.
Well, he said, about the temple, I'll tear this temple down in 3 days and rebuild it, or tear it down and rebuild it in 3 days. He was talking about himself, not the,
But the way I read the beginning part was there wasn't really anything they could do, so they came up with false things.
right,
They made
yeah.
stuff up.
So what's the real things that they're concerned about?
Real what?
If they, if they're trumping, if they have trumped up charges that were false, then what's really happening with the religious leaders?
He had said he was the son of God, hadn't he?
Yeah, well, he just does.
Wouldn't that be reason enough for them?
That
he
would,
was
yeah, that would be reason enough.
claiming
Mhm.
to be the son of God, and they thought that was blasphemous.
Mhm.
But they also were afraid of losing their influence and their power in the community.
Yep. Say more about that. What was their power and influence in the
Well,
community?
everybody did what they said to do. They had great respect from at least the Jewish community, and they worked, they sort of worked with the Romans to like sort of keep things calm. And they, it's like, it's anybody who's in power, that they don't want to lose what they have.
Mhm. Yep, good. Yeah, that's right. They've been occupied now for about 60 years by the Romans. Sound good? Would that have an impact on religious leaders under those circumstances? The heads of the Russian Orthodox Church right now are saying, "Great job, Vladimir. Yeah, we really need to enter Ukraine."
They are saying?
You bet they are.
Do they really believe that, or is that?
Of course they don't believe it.
They want to stay in favor?
That's right. We see it over and over and over. So what are your choices?
So
What are
they're
your-
really intimidated, they're afraid of
Exactly.
what the repercussions.
That's right. So what are your choices? You're a religious leader. You see this terrible stuff going on. I'm talking about here in, let's say, Russia, or in the United States at times. Clergy get killed once in a while. So what are your choices? You can either say, look, we're going to do what we can to placate the situation and get out the other side, and then rebuild, or what?
They're going to be the ones crucified.
That's right.
So it's really self-preservation.
I do believe. Yeah. Is that the kind of leadership you want from your pastors and your?
No, but it's hard for me to even think about being in that position and how would I respond?
Right.
Or if you're protecting your family or
Mhm.
your kids by saying a lie.
Yeah.
There's just so many levels of,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to walk into your own death. I don't know if I have that ability.
Yeah.
So I don't put them down for it.
No, you can understand it, right? It's
Yeah.
self-preservation for sure. Yeah. I understand it too.
Almost anybody would,
Of course.
for their family, to keep their family safe.
Right.
And,
It's
we
horrible.
see that they're just murdering
Yeah.
families,
Yeah.
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 And I don't think they have the truth within the country. I just don't think they have it, the people.
Not everyone, but
So,
I would imagine the religious leaders do. They've got sources. Yeah. There's Russian Orthodox priests in Ukraine all over the place. They're all connected. I'm sure they've got information. Just like the Pope during World War II. Was it Lyall? No, was it? No, it wasn't Lyall.
Pius?
Sorry?
Oh, Pius?
Yeah, Pius, that's it. Thank you. He had all the information about genocide. What do we expect and call our leaders to when they first start and say, look, you could be in situations that could possibly be dangerous, but we want you to do the right thing anyway. So get out. If you can't do it, won't do it, whatever. You want to hang on to your life. Totally understand, but you can't be that then. That's honest, I think. That's honest. You may be in situations, you may be put in situations that are dangerous. What do you think of that? It's fun. And we do that because, if Jesus is the model of how leadership, let's put it that way, how leadership should be, then that's what we do. And then when you get married, you sit down, or before you get married, you sit down with your wife-to-be and say, look, this could get ugly.
Are churches in Russia, are they considered sanctuaries at all?
It's a good question. And I'm sure it's kind of all over the place, don't you think? Like certain priests are probably just knocking themselves out. Maybe they're on the front lines, I don't know. I don't know. I know during World War II, for Americans, one of the highest rates of death in World War II was chaplains. Because they're out in the middle of the field covering, they're just sitting ducks. Yeah. Corpsmen and chaplains were the top ones. That's. Yeah, and what are you going to do? You got to go. Of course, you're going to go up there. So, this is sobering stuff, and that's why we only think about it once a year.
No wonder you're crappy.
Yeah, I'm a little cranky because I have to be. It's sobering. This stuff is. It sobers me, and I told you a couple of times from the pulpit. Meeting with Hungarian pastors, Reformed Church pastors, just like me, and what they went through during the Soviet, when the Soviets were there for I forget how many years, 40 years, let's say, ish, and what they had to go through. They lost all their institutions. They took over their seminaries, all the buildings. They became little high schools for Soviet kids, and their kids couldn't go to college. They couldn't get into any of the good schools. I told you this, and a lot of them killed themselves to free their kids. I mean, this is no joke. So anyway, I've had a little incidents a couple times, too, right? You know about that, right? Yeah. I've had my brakes cut about a year and a half ago. Yeah, on my way down, I discovered that on my way to Dover, which is really inconvenient if you don't have brakes. Yeah, I took my Tahoe to what you call these people? My mechanic, and he came up to me and he said, "You've got enemies." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Those brake lines have been cut." And then I had a bullet put on my front door, right in front of my door. That came from my AR-15. So it's no joke,
Was this recently?
A year and a half ago.
Do you have any idea what's unhappy with you?
I thought it was Helen. Yeah. Yeah, I had a trooper come up for a 911 call. Came up to my house. It was the wrong house. I said, "Hey, while you're here," I still have the bullet. I said, "Where did this come from?" So he's going, "What?" So he's starting to write everything down. I said, I just want to, he said, that comes from an AR-15. You know, so I don't know. It's, you know, I'm just a kid from Western Michigan.
That might have been me. I wasn't clear in my head. It might have been me, I'm not sure.
And that's why I wasn't afraid, Diane, because I know you're a terrible shot. But I don't want to be melodramatic, but here I am in Millbrook. I'm just a kid from Western Michigan. Big deal. So what? But people, we are living in a highly charged situation here in the country, and people are not at their best. I know that too, and our level of patience with anything is pretty, we had COVID and all sorts of stuff. So it is.
So do you think it was politically motivated?
I do.
Your views?
Mm-hmm.
Like you do tend to lean a little bit to the left? And there's a lot of people in the Dover area that lean way toward.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, the other thing is we're on live, so I don't know who's watching us.
I don't think he said that somebody was from Dover, or he was going to Dover when the breaks came out.
No, these are all my friends in Dover. Yeah. But yeah, that's when I discovered it going down. I don't know what I was doing down there, but.
I don't know, but I think what you're talking about is pretty horrible in a democracy that you have to think like that. I know, I'm quite liberal, as everybody knows, and my children would tell me, Mom, you can't say that when you're out somewhere and stuff.
Right.
And I feel like it's the truth.
Yeah.
And you're up against all these lies. And if you don't defend the truth when you know it's the truth, I mean, you see pictures, you see events that happen that people have taken on their cell phone. They can't be manufactured like Russia is saying the war is. And they'll say, you don't know what people will do to you. And my own children will just, oh, Mom, don't say this. If you're just don't talk. Well, I think that's a ridiculous place for this country to be in.
Yeah. Well, and
how did we get that?
Right. Well, we've been that way for a long time, but I'm also open to being in error. I'm not perfect. What I see is not perfect, and if I get other information, I'm willing to modulate my views on whatever. But I see what I see, and I hear what I hear, and I trust myself that what I see and what I hear is real. But anyway, that's an excursus, but I think one of the things that's saying in the scriptures is that, where are you at, reader, hearer? Where are you at with this? Are you on this, are you thinking this is only going to be worked through violence, murder, intimidation? The story of Jesus is, or, so in other words, the disciples get out their sword, right? And cut off the ear of the servant of the, right? Is that the answer? Is that, right? It's this is really important stuff. Or is it always going to wind up being violence? And then whoever's got the biggest army, biggest weapon, they might makes right? Is that really what this is about? You can see why people become pacifists, Christians, because they just say, forget it, and then you pay the price.
But there's definitely people who have taken that path. They
Yeah.
Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King.
Right.
They know. He knew he was putting his
Talked about it.
And talk about putting yourself in the sights of all the
Right,
kids that
right.
are around them.
And is that what's needed? Yeah, he talked to his friends about it all the time. In fact, the day he was killed, he was talking to his friends about that. He said, I'm not going to get out of Nashville. Yeah, I'm not going to make it. Or Memphis. Yeah, I'm not going to get out. Today's it.
But he kept, like what Helen said, he kept saying what he believed.
Right.
And what he believed was very different than
Right.
anybody had heard in a long time.
Sure. And can you say this is important too, I think. Can you say that what Martin Luther King preached about, talked about, wrote about, that all of it was absolutely right? I won't say that. Was he in error at times? Was his life in error? Of course. I mean, he's a person. He's a human. But I don't know. I really trust. I trust leaders, not just religious leaders. Anybody. I trust a leader who's willing to take the heat rather than having the followers take the heat. That's a sign to me that somebody is authentic, the real thing. And you see that all the time, you know. Herman Miller Furniture Company. Have you ever heard of that? That comes out of Zeeland, Michigan. Herman Miller, they're office furniture. They're worldwide office furniture. During the Great Depression, all of the owners and all the top management took no money for the whole time. They fired no one. Everybody got their pay, you know. I mean, that's leadership, in my view. Leaders. So when we see Zelensky, right, falling apart, I'm thinking, because Vladimir Putin doesn't look like that.
Like a
Right, just put the two faces in front of each other. Who's the leader? This guy. And so, you know, Jesus is, I think, a template for leadership. But you got to pay the price. You have to be willing to pay the price.
And all of the good leaders that we're talking about, starting with Christ, they all preached of a similar thing.
Yeah.
Peace,
Mhm.
justice, love,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. The empowerment of persons.
Even
Yeah.
now, Zelensky is wanting peace.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
not wanting
Yep,
war.
he hasn't changed a bit.
They're all talking peace, you know. But the awful people, and where is God in all this?
Sorry?
Where is God in all of this world
Great question.
situation that we're in now? Will truth and peace and love win out? And we have to do it militarily?
Right. Forever?
Is that a God? I mean,
Yeah.
can we somehow have peace?
It's a great question. I've asked that, you know, for years since I became a Christian. Is, you know, Jesus talks about, you know, send us the kingdom, you know, bring the kingdom to earth as it is in heaven. And I keep thinking, Jesus, I don't know about that. I don't know.
Are we going to get
I don't know. Right. So is Zelensky, let's say, and he's the easy person to talk about right now, but is he kind of a little hint of the kingdom? Is
Because Zelensky? Oh, yeah, Zelensky.
the president? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it you know, is that kind of what it looks like?
Yeah.
A little bit what it looks like. Is it Gandhi? Is it Martin Luther King? Do we get these little moments? Is it somebody in our community? Is it, you know, you know,
anyone you meet that lives by service.
right? I mean, there's Diane in the food pantry right as we speak, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the this is an ongoing question that I have too. Is that kind of a little whisper of the kingdom? And you know, maybe how can I maybe be a little part of that? Maybe. You see what I mean? How can I get into that club, that kingdom club kind of thing? And what might it look like? What could be my contribution to it? Or is it just, give me a gun?
And how?
That's what it boils down to.
How can we keep this little kingdom from being squashed
Right, yeah.
by
There were wildflowers.
evil elements that seem to be around squashing them?
Right, or are we all going to be victims to it?
Right.
That's also St. Paul. He struggled with this issue too. And so Jesus, pick up your cross and follow me, is what he said. And Paul said, Paul, who was also killed for his faith, martyred for his faith, isn't this cheerful? Well, we're entering, Holy Week, so we can talk about stuff like this. So, St. Paul talks about it from time to time too. We're all set up to be sacrificed. He says that that idea is in several of his epistles, of his letters, and God knows the first through fourth centuries. The Christian church was just hammered. So, I think I had an elder at Hyde Park. One of the things that she said, good Presbyterian, she said, way too many Christians in churches, way too many. And she's funny, right? Everybody wants church growth. She goes, no. We want to go the other way. Fewer, not more. And I would say to her, why do you say that? She goes, because very few people are going to step up to that. Yeah, we want people, of course we want our friends and our family and all this, and we're going to have a jolly good time here in churches. And she goes, no. That's not what this is about. It's about stepping up. And how many of us are willing to do that? I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah. Okay, so one of the things I want to leave you with is a question. Does Jesus have power? Does Jesus have power? You can wrestle with that question.
At this particular time, he does not appear to have any power.
Yeah.
That's why he's like crying out to God, why are you permitting them?
Yeah.
Why are you allowing this?
Right, and 3 times you'll see he's going to be led. It says he's led. Really kind of, taking away any sense of power. He's just going to get led. So,
That's the lamb to slaughter. I mean,
right.
Put a little rope around its neck and it follows you.
Yeah.
Doesn't know what's coming.
Yeah, he knows what's coming, but the
That's
point's well taken.
That is the hard, when you think about it.
He knows.
Different. People know what's going on, what's around them.
Yeah.
I think it's, totally understandable. I couldn't do it. You led to slaughter.
All these people that were tied behind their backs and shot.
Yeah.
And
Or those back when it was there, right, when those men were all heads cut off, the 16 men that were the Coptic Christians.
Mhm.
Remember that incident?
Mhm.
There's nothing they can do. They are being
led to the slaughter. Yeah.
with their hands behind their backs.
Yeah. Well, why don't we read the thing about Barabbas a minute and see how that goes. By the way, Mark does not have a story of washing the feet. Maundy Thursday story is not in Mark, right? This is stuff I forget to say to you guys. Okay. 6 through 15.
I'll read it.
Great.
Now, at the festival, he used to release a prisoner for them, anyone for whom they asked. Now, a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during their insurrection. So the crowd came and began to ask Pilate to do for them according to his custom. And he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas for them instead. Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you wish for me to do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" And they shouted back, "Crucify him." Pilate asked, "Why? What evil thing has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
So who's this Barabbas person? That's a pretty big section, don't you think? You know, Mark is just a little, 16 chapters. It's a pretty big section. Who's Barabbas?
He was a thief.
Murderer?
Murderer?
Oh, he was a murderer.
Rebel?
Yeah. But he committed murder, it says, during
Yeah.
his rebellion.
Remember I talked to you about Macarii?
Well, he's like,
The swords?
he's the
knives?
opposite.
Opposite of Jesus.
Right, because he wanted an insurrection, he wanted to change,
Yeah.
speak truth to power.
Right.
He was going to try to do it this way.
Exactly. So they're gonna let him go. Anybody else? He's a political prisoner, right? He's a political prisoner. He's murdering probably Romans.
Kind of interesting that he has a name rather than just
Isn't it?
prisoner or a man.
Yeah. He's got a name. Good one. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Barabbas. So maybe people knew about this. He's kind of we know this story. We know the guy's name.
Mhm.
So what's he like? What kind of a person is he? Can you go a little bit deeper? What makes Barabbas tick?
The fighter, not a peacemaker.
He has strong convictions.
Strong convictions, for sure. Anybody else?
Apparently he wasn't afraid of,
Sorry?
apparently he wasn't afraid of consequences of doing what he was doing.
No? Mm-mm. Is he connected to anyone?
He said other rebels.
He's got friends.
He's got friends, and they're rebels.
He's got friends. So who is this? Pilate is doing this? Yeah, it's Pilate. Why would Pilate, even with the crowd, why would he choose Barabbas over Jesus? Jesus isn't violent.
He was afraid of the crowd.
Afraid of the crowd. Yeah, say more. What? I mean, he knew.
Well, he didn't want to be unpopular.
Yeah.
He wanted to be in sync with the crowd.
Right.
Good.
Politician. Typical.
Yeah, because he can say, it wasn't me that made this decision, it was the crowd.
Right.
I didn't kill
Right.
him, you did.
Right. Also typical of politicians, right? They read the crowd, so to speak. And then they do what they do, and they say it wasn't me.
I think even later, doesn't he say, I'm washing my hands?
Exactly, yep. Literally washes his hands. Because they're going to,
Well, they turned him over too. He says that they were jealous of him. He
Yeah.
knew that was the reason.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be a sin, I wouldn't think, or shouldn't be a crime, but
yeah.
he was.
What about, a little better translation of that word is envy. It's a little bit, it's a kissing cousin word with jealousy, but it's envy, as I understand it, is wanting what somebody's got, and you want ill for that person. That's the additional piece. Envy. So far, do you think that the religious leaders and the political leaders, civil leaders, are thinking we're going to kill this guy and we'll be done with it? That'll be it.
Yeah.
This will be the end of the story. Yeah. Just to say, without the resurrection, it is the end of the story. Everything hangs on the resurrection of Jesus. Everything. Otherwise, it's just another political murder. You know, we've seen a dime a dozen.
They want Jesus to go away.
What's that?
They want Jesus to go away.
I know,
It's
it's
causing
just-
so much trouble.
So much trouble. And what's the trouble? What kind of trouble is he bringing?
A threat to their power.
The threat to their power, but what's he doing? He's healing. What is he doing? He's healing people?
But they're not able to do that.
Well, they can't do that. Wait.
That's their envy.
That's their envy, yeah. Yeah. Good point.
And
Bless-
he has crowds of people following him.
A lot of
that,
people are following.
You know, it's like, well, you know.
Are the Pharisees going out there and they got 5,000 people?
Jesus, they're not going to vote for me.
Right.
You know, it's the same idea. You know?
Yeah.
So get rid of it.
Blessed are the poor. Blessed are those who are grieving. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the...
Well, that's everything that they are not.
I know it. Yeah, and you know, and I'll jump. I like St. Paul. I like reading St. Paul with us. He's really good this way. St. Paul was a Pharisee of the Pharisees. This guy knew the Old Testament. He knew the law. He followed the law to the nth degree. And guess what? It was meaningless. It didn't work. He was miserable. He's the perfect Jewish leader. And he was empty as anything, full of hatred, full of envy. It didn't work. Following the law doesn't work. It kills you, he says. As good as the law is, it's God's law. But if that's what you follow, if that's your raison d'être, it'll never work. It'll never do what? It'll never fulfill you as a person. It will never make you feel free. It will never get you to the place of grace. It'll never get you to a place of truth, compassion. It won't do any of those things. So you rot. You're rotting on the inside, and you're on the top of the heap. Not a great place to be. And Christ frees us. It doesn't mean that we don't live by standards and rules and, you know, and things like that. My gosh, you know, my parents drilled that stuff into me. It doesn't mean that's not important, but it won't bring life. This guy brings life. Does that make sense? It's a what do you call it when something is completely turned on its head? Gosh, I wish I wasn't so old. I was pretty smart a long time ago.
Flip.
Thank you. It's flipped. That's exactly the word. I was clawing for that word, Karen, and thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Once again, you bailed me out. Yeah, it flipped, as Karen so beautifully put. Yeah, it's just a totally different way of looking at life and living, and it's revolutionary. And Christ has done this. I mean, to the point where St. Paul, who was a jerk, I mean, he was a first-class hater. You know, when we read the 1 Corinthians 13, you hear that all the time at weddings. I always say before, what you're about to hear was written by a first-class hater. and he came in contact with Christ, and then he becomes this. It's transformational. Anybody else? Well,
You
Pat
can't change things without changing things. That's the thing. We were, as a people, we were in a bad place or whatever. So something has to give and it has to be big.
It's big.
Yeah, like I feel like the world now, the only thing that's gonna happen is Christ coming back. I mean, it's gonna be that big. We can fight for peace all the time, but it's never gonna really happen.
I wonder, and I hear that, I hear you. I wonder if Christ has come back, and Christ is in us. We're it.
Yeah, I'm worried that.
You know, because we missed Christ the first time, right? People didn't recognize him the first time. That's Christmas. But maybe we'll recognize Christ in people. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
I think there must have been something about Christ, though. Something that was inexplainable, something that touched hearts. Maybe it was the love, maybe it was integrity. But so many of these people, Pilate, they came so close. They came so close. You know, he was parsing. Why do you want this guy crucified? There must have been something in his demeanor, and I think these are the things that we need to adopt. My father-in-law was not a learned man, but he said the two most important things that you can ask for in this world, and the things that you should hold on to no matter what the cost, are integrity and wisdom. And I can say that man never lied. He didn't take change from the store that was too much, those sorts of things. And he attempted to instill that. Most people would say about him, he always told the truth, and he always accepted everybody. I kind of think that's the guy Christ was. You know, there was no sin too ugly. There was no deed too terrible. You know, he wasn't walking around with a halo over his head. And I think that just shows us, or at least Pilate and these people that came to the edge, we don't want to be like St. Paul. We want to have that kind of conversion. I didn't have that kind of conversion. But I knew that I knew that I knew that I had met my Lord. But on the flip side, there are people who are smacked on their rear end and you know, without a shadow of a doubt. I just think that these are the things that we need to adopt in our walk and become less involved. And maybe that was the struggle of the priests and the public officials. Change is really hard. And what this man was talking about was a whole new approach to the human race, to God, to everything we knew. We come kicking and screaming to change.
Well, and you have to be willing to pay for it.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. I mean, this is one of the things I'm so that I so love about this country is you get snippets of this. That, you know, we get it from so much of what we get as far as freedom of speech and all that stuff that we get is embedded in this. And other countries don't have it. And a lot of other countries do not have this. And, you know, it's a real gift, I think, to the whole idea that a person is sacred. We don't always act that way, and we don't. We're a pretty violent country too many times, but we've got this sort of instilled in us. And are we willing to pay for it? Okay, well, next week we're going to go into the crucifixion itself, and so hang on to your hat. Do you know the writer Anne Lamont? She's a Christian writer. She's Annie Lamont. She's very funny and very perceptive, and came to be a Christian late in her life. And she writes, if a real church is one that's going to hand out helmets every Sunday. The contact sport. I mean, it's pretty funny. She's a riot. And Bird by Bird, I think is one of her books. Bird by Bird. Oh, gosh, it's funny.